Update, brought to you by Simcox Advocates, advising businesses and families since 1949. Visit simcox.com or call 690 300. Manx Radio's Update with Andy Wint.
Pastor Mike, good evening. It's 5:30. This is Update for Tuesday, 24th of October, 2023 from Manx Radio. 30 minutes to look at the latest news here on the Isle of Man. Background to the news, we've got sport and business and Sea-Watch and travel updates. And the newsmakers in person this evening, at least one dead as the Verity sinks off the German coast. The latest on disruption on the EasyJet Gatwick flights. The latest on the Kroger gas projects. A Scottish company gets a £20,000 fine for unlicensed fishing. And is Tramway Ter coming down or not?
Man Benham for all your business and legal needs.
First of all, at 29 minutes ahead of 6 o'clock, the Update news headlines. First to my Christian Jones.
Fast to my. Police have recovered up to £750,000 worth of heroin and cocaine, making it the single largest seizure of Class A drugs on the island ever. 3 men have been charged and will appear at Douglas Courthouse tomorrow. Government appears to be backtracking on demolition plans of Tramway Ter in Douglas, despite the Department of Infrastructure seeking a contractor to take down the registered building. In a statement released today, it says demolition is not necessarily the case and confirmed the DOI is committed to following appropriate procedure. And one person has died, 2 have been rescued and 4 remain missing after a Manx cargo ship sank after colliding with another vessel off the coast of Germany. A search and rescue operation remains underway. In international news, Downing Street says the number of British nationals killed in Hamas attacks in Israel has risen to 12. Another 5 are missing. Derbyshire police have referred themselves to the watchdog after a woman was found dead at her home during Storm Babette. Maureen Gilbert, who was 83, died on Saturday in Chesterfield. And Bitcoin mining uses more electricity than most countries, according to a UN report. In 2020 and 2021, Bitcoin used enough power to rank it 27th in the world, above Pakistan. Those are the Update news headlines, next at 6.
Man Benham. Contact us by phone, video call, email or face-to-face. We're happy to connect with you. Manx Radio Weather with Manx Glass and Glazing.
Jeremiah, thank you, Christian, from the Ronaldsway Met Office. There's no wind warning in operation for the North Irish Sea. State of sea is slight, and Manxman's due in just after 6 o'clock. It's going to be dry after dark, clear intervals, a light east-southeasterly and down to 9 degrees. For Jacrane, dry and bright for Wednesday, sunny intervals, top temperature 13. Rain will develop overnight into Thursday, minimum 10 Celsius. And for Jardane, cloudy with showers and longer periods of rain and 12 degrees. Sunset this evening in a little under half an hour's time at 2 minutes past 6. High water 8:45. Low tide overnight 10 past 3 a.m. Sunrise 4 minutes past 8. And the morning high tide 19 minutes past 9.
Visit the Manx Glass and Glazing website and see a range of products from windows to doors, mirrors to splashbacks. manxglass.com.
The Isle of Man Ship Registry has confirmed a Manx-registered cargo ship was involved in a collision during the early hours and sank off the coast of Germany. The latest from Lewis Foster.
1 person has died and 2 of the 7 crew members reported on board have been rescued after the collision in the North Sea. The others remain missing. Emergency services say the Verity was heading from Bremen to Immingham in North Lincolnshire when it was involved in a crash with another vessel. Shipping industry websites list the Verity as sailing under the Manx flag. It's thought the collision happened at around 4 o'clock this morning with the Bahamian-registered bulk carrier Policy. The Verity sank while the Policy remained afloat. The incident occurred in the sea area known as German Bight, and the collision occurred southwest of the island of Heligoland. The German Maritime Rescue Coordination Centre received the alarm just before 5 o'clock this morning. The search and rescue operation was immediately initiated. The Isle of Man Ship Registry has passed on heartfelt thanks to the 6 German and Maritime Search and Rescue Service cruisers and others involved in the ongoing search and rescue operation. It says it has a memorandum of understanding with the UK's Marine Accident Investigation Branch, who will now conduct a casualty investigation into this tragic incident. Meanwhile, the 2 seafarers rescued are currently reported as doing well. The search for the 4 crew members still missing continues.
Over the past year, there's been continued disruption to flights at Isle of Man Airport, particularly with the evening flight to and from Gatwick. According to data obtained from the government, EasyJet requested the airport remain open past closing hours 38 times across June and July. But the Isle of Man's airport director, Gary Cobb, thinks despite airlines using designated extensions, it's not always his team's fault.
Probably well over 95% of the time, our air traffic controllers will stay behind. This isn't new to EasyJet. This has always been the case for EasyJet coming in. That flight always straddles very, very close to our closing time, and so then we will have to stay over. Stopping over happens on overtime, so again, it's not a fine or a penalty. We charge an extension fee, which is pretty much akin to every other UK airport that will offer an extension, and that extension is purely just covering the cost or the additional cost to the airport for stopping open. A lot of the ATC issues that you hear about recently, the pilot will say ATC, and unfortunately I think a lot of people on the island think, oh, ATC, it must mean the Isle of Man ATC. Gatwick has had quite a lot of issues with air traffic control, if anyone's been reading the news. Exactly the same issues as us. So since the pandemic, since Brexit, recruiting ATCOs, training ATCOs has taken longer than wanted, and also the training pipeline is a lot more. But we typically see far more issues with that Gatwick flight due to, should we say, Gatwick's air traffic control than our air traffic control. We've had a couple of instances where it's landed on time, it's been ready to leave at 9, but it's not left until about 10 to 11, and again, that's because it's picked up a slot, which is basically its ability to take a slot on Gatwick's runway has been delayed due to flow rates that have been imposed to try and control air traffic going in.
Update brought to you by Simcox Advocates.
The former Infrastructure Minister Chris Thomas says he's happier after getting answers to his inquiries over the licence given to Kroger to drill for gas off the Isle of Man's coast. In a number of questions in Keys, Chris Thomas questioned the Cabinet Office role, as well as asking about checks on the company's financial capacity. Afterward, he gave his reaction.
I'm happier today than I was before today, because basically the Chief Minister agreed with me that proper procedure, proper process had to be followed, that advice that was received couldn't be overruled politically. So I'm much happier at the end of the day that, in actual fact, what I said back in July and August, which it remains true as it was then, and I'm glad that the process is now being done more properly and more.
Will you be pushing further questions, or is that it?
The Chief Minister's indicated that a decision will be made in 2 weeks. I'm an evidence-based policy person. If the evidence says make the decision this way, I'll be happy with that. I still don't have a bias. I don't have a biased position, unlike many others. I wanted this decision to be made properly, and I'm more reassured today that it's going to be made properly.
A Scottish firm's been fined £20,000 after being caught fishing in Manx waters without a licence. The Star Fishing Company Limited, based in Oban on the west coast of Scotland, blamed a rogue skipper for breaking the law last year. From Douglas Courthouse, Tessa Hawley.
The man was in charge of the Star of Jura when it entered the Isle of Man's territorial area between 1:40 and 4:20 on the morning of the 3rd of December. During that period, the crew caught 408 kilograms of king scallops, valued at £8,948. The fishing activity wasn't logged in the vessel's logbook. Fisheries officers from the Department of Environment, Food and Agriculture travelled to Scotland to meet and interview the company with the view of bringing prosecutions. During sentencing at Douglas Courthouse today, magistrates heard that process had cost taxpayers almost £4,500. The Star Fishing Company's advocate told the court the skipper, who'd left the UK and moved to Poland before charges could be brought against him individually, had acted without authority. It was a frolic of the skipper's own, the advocate said. His actions speak for themselves. He told the court the Star of Jura had sailed from West Sussex, having legitimately collected 30 bags of scallops in UK waters before moving into Manx waters. This would appear to be a one-off involving a rogue skipper, the advocate added, explaining that the man had been dismissed from the company as a result. The Star Fishing Company will have 12 months to pay the fine, as well as compensation for the catch and the prosecution costs.
Sea-Watch with the Isle of Man Steam Packet Company.
Motor vessel Manxman left Heysham at 2:25. She'll be into the bay fairly shortly, onto the link span just after 6 o'clock. Tonight's departure, 8:15. Ben McCree heads to Heysham, getting there about midnight. The overnight departure should be 2:15, but the Ben will leave Heysham at 1:50, 10-2, because of tidal restrictions. So if you know anybody, they need to check in no later than 1 a.m. So she'll be back tomorrow morning at around 5. Tomorrow morning's departure, 8:45. Manxman heads to Heysham.
Follow the Steam Packet on Twitter for the latest sailing information.
The Isle of Man sports facilities have been inspected in recent days to see if they're up to scratch to potentially host the 2029 Island Games. The Isle have made its bid to host the event in 6 years' time in the summer, with a decision on the bid expected July next year. So how did the inspections go? Well, here's the chair of the International Island Games Association, Jørgen Pettersen.
Well, in fairness, what we already know, that Isle of Man is perfectly ready to become a host for the third time. You did it 1985, you did it 2001, and you're ready again. You understand that it's the sports that are the blood of the games, that you have to have transport under control, that accommodation need to be sufficient, health and security, and you have a lot of volunteers. So you're pretty much ready for what to expect. Isle of Man is the preferred bidder, meaning that the actual bid will be presented for the 24 member islands during this incoming summer in Orkney, where we're having the annual general meeting. At that time, it will be a vote amongst the member islands to formally give the games to Isle of Man. It would be very surprising at that time if things weren't good enough for the games, which they are. So saying that Isle of Man is pretty much ready, that's because they still need a number of volunteers. They have to make up their mind about the sports, perhaps introduce more firm alternatives when it comes to accommodation. So everything is there, it's just about to choose the way. Within the Island Games Association, it is very important to see that all the member islands are exactly as important, with the slight difference that you can only be born in one place, and Isle of Man will therefore always be the place for the birth of the Island Games Association.
Manx Radio Business Briefing.
At 17 minutes before 6, fast am I. Thanks for dropping in to Manx Radio this evening. We're live from Douglas in the Isle of Man. In corporate news, Barclays slid as its third quarter headline profits beat analyst forecasts, but the bank cut its guidance for retail banking net interest margin, NIM, for 2023. Now, the full year net interest margin, that's the difference between interest income and the amount it pays back on interest on deposits, was revised to 3.05 to 3.1% from earlier guidance of 3.15 to 3.2%. And for a full daily market report, go to ramseycrookall.com. In Britain, the cap on bankers' bonuses is being removed from the 31st of this month as part of a post-Brexit shake-up of UK financial rules. The plan was announced by former Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng last year as a way of making London a more attractive place to do business. It was one of the few mini-budget policies that remained after most were unwound by Mr Kwarteng's successor, Jeremy Hunt MP. The cap was introduced in 2014 when UK was part of the EU and was designed to curb excessive risk-taking in the financial services industry in the wake of the 2008 financial crash. The cap limited the variable pay of employees of banks, building societies and investment firms to twice their base pay. Finance bosses have long complained, saying this leads to higher base pay, which pushes up banks' fixed costs, which can't be adjusted in line with the firm's financial performance, making it harder to cut costs during a downturn.
The Stock Market Report. Brought to you by Ramsey Crookall.
UK and European markets were higher. US stocks gained ground amid a revival in the benchmark 10-year Treasury yield. Gold eased, hurt by the higher dollar, and oil slipped. The numbers from Ramsey Crookall at the close in London. The FTSE 100 is up 0.2% at 7,389. The DAX in Frankfurt up almost 0.5% at 14,869 at the close. Short time ago in New York City, the Dow Jones Industrial up 0.7% at 33,159. The Nasdaq Tech Stocks Index up 0.7% at 13,110. And in Chicago, the S&P 500 up 0.6%, currently 4,242. And the trading day continues. In the exchange markets, the British pound sterling trading at $1 21.6 cents, €1 14.8 cents, and 23 South African rand 16.7 cents. In commodities, gold's down 0.4% at $1,965 per troy ounce, and a barrel of Brent crude down just over 4%, almost 4.25% at $86.66.
You've got an investment plan?
Yeah, Mike set it up.
But don't you need loads of money to do that?
Not this one. It's called Shearwater from Ramsey Crookall, and you pay in monthly as little as £100. So it's like saving regularly, really helping us invest in the future for a house, or the kids' education.
£100 a month? I could easily do that.
You should. The sooner you start, the better.
Invest in your future with as little as £100 a month. Shearwater from Ramsey Crookall, the island's investment specialist for 75 years. Call 717171 or visit ramseycrookall.com. Licensed and regulated by the Isle of Man Financial Services Authority.
The Isle of Man in 30 minutes. Update on Manx Radio with Andy Wint.
Will it or won't it? The question of the possible demolition of the Victorian building next to the tram stables at the bottom of Summerhill in Douglas. Well, there have been suggestions that planning regulations are not being adhered to. John Moss from Manx Radio News spoke to the Infrastructure Minister Tim Crookall, MHK. So is it coming down?
I'm not happy that it looks like it may have to come down at this moment, John. We are working and looking at every option. You'll see it's been cordoned off at the moment to keep it safe, keep Joe Public safe. And we're working with DEFRA. They've obviously got a role in this as well, making sure that we look and do what we have to do. So we're working with DEFRA.
It's a chimney stack that's apparently...
Well, it's a bit more than that. It's gone through I think it's the centre one that's gone through the roof and through the floor. But there's other bits and pieces as well. So we're working with DEFRA, and they've got an inspector coming over next week, I think, or this Friday, I think it is. And we'll work with them and just see where we go from here.
We've heard an architectural historian, Peter Kelly, say he feels that regulations are not being pursued. You're happy they are?
We are working with DEFRA, and obviously they've got a regulatory role in this, and we'll work with them to make sure we do it properly, yes.
It's unfortunate it's having to happen when the season is still just
before the end, absolutely, but it's got to be safe first for everybody in that area and the horses, and we'll make sure that it is.
And the stables are safe?
Yes, they are.
They're just behind that?
Yeah.
Manx Radio Sport.
Fast am I, Rob Pritchard.
Fast am I. Good evening. Starting with motorsport, and a new US-based documentary of the Isle of Man TT races has been released.
Pace of life on the Isle of Man is slow, even sleepy, for 50 weeks of the year. But for 2 weeks, starting at the end of May, it becomes one of the loudest, fastest, most dangerous places in sport.
The 22-minute feature on CBS News' Sunday on 60 Minutes sees reporter Bill Whittaker delve into the history of the racing fortnight and what draws riders to compete on the Snaefell Mountain course each year. In his time on Ireland, Whittaker speaks with well-known figures in the paddock about the island and TT, including 13-time TT winner Peter Hickman, former TT winner Richard Milky Quayle, and head of motorsport Paul Phillips. Along with the racing, the report also takes a look into the history of the Isle of Man, as well as how the races came to be founded on Manx shores. The documentary is now available to watch for free on the Sunday on 60 Minutes webpage. In hockey, the Isle of Man under-16 girls squad got their latest campaign in the England Hockey Tier 2 Championships off to a winning start at the weekend. The Manx side earned a 6-3 victory over Chorley Phoenix under-16s on Sunday to progress. A brace from Fern Bragazzi and then a goal apiece for Gypsy May Quirk, Lucy Cartwright, Molly Wheeler and Macy Crellin helped secure passage to the second round. And finally, some of the world's best chess players are making their way to Manx shores as the Isle of Man prepares to host two prestigious international tournaments. The third FIDE Grand Swiss tournament and second FIDE Women's Grand Swiss will be held at the Villa Marina in Douglas from Wednesday until Sunday. The Grand Swiss will feature 21 players with ratings of 2,700 and above and a further 73 at 2,600 and above. The event has a combined prize fund of $600,000.
Manx Radio Travel, driven by Quayside Tyres and Service Centre.
Next inbound at Ronaldsway, the 10 to 8 Loganair from London City's on time, 5 to 8 returning patient transfer Loganair from Liverpool on time, the 8:15 inbound EasyJet from London Gatwick is showing on time. Outbound, the 5:30 EasyJet to Liverpool went on time, 6 o'clock Loganair to Liverpool showing on time, and the 8:45 return EasyJet back to Gatwick showing on time. On the roads, temporary lights at the junction of Queen's Road and Park Road in Port St Mary. They're doing some gas main work there. In Onken, Little Mill Road and Ballacottier Road closed for dishing work. Queen Street's closed in Castletown for temporary resurfacing work, and some lights too on Peveril Road in Peel for resurfacing. Hillside Avenue Douglas closed for adjacent office window replacement through to Circular Road, and temporary lights on Glencrutchery Road at the roundabout with Victoria Road, again resurfacing. The Braid, temporary lights on the Braid roundabout for patching work, and in Sulby, lights on Sulby Glen Road for culvert clearing. And remember, Newcastletown Road is closed between Spring Valley roundabout, the bottom of Richmond Hill for resurfacing. The junction at the bottom of Richmond Hill reopened, traffic diverted along the Energy from Waste Plant access road and the top of Quebec Hill.
H&H Motorcycles.im for all your motorcycle requirements. Southgate Industrial Estate, opposite Quayside Tyres. Call 665646.
Over £2 million has been spent to cover the cost of temporary staff by the Cabinet Office over the last 10 years. The figure's been released as part of a Freedom of Information request. With the details, Siobhan Fletcher.
The Freedom of Information request sought the amount in figures on an annual basis spent by the government to cover the cost of agency or temporary staff for the last 10 years. The Cabinet Office response stated that whilst it did not hold the data for the whole of government, it could provide the information held for the offices within the Cabinet Office department. It therefore released figures for offices ranging from the Office for Human Resources, Economic Affairs, Policy Development and External Relations. The highest amount, £609,208, was spent in 2022 to 2023. In total, from the 1st of April 2014 until the 31st of August 2023, £2,190,857 has been spent by the Cabinet Office on temporary staff.
Update brought to you by Simcox Advocates, advising businesses and families since 1949. Visit simcox.com or call 690 300.
Ramsey Commissioners is calling on the Department of Education, Sport and Culture to allow a local football club to use an empty field on the old Albert Road School site. Jeff Court, lead member for Parks and Leisure, says the request has been ignored and hasn't been responded to for months.
So the Ligney Field was the old football pitch that belonged to the Albert Road School a long time ago before it was demolished, and it has since been left derelict and empty. Several months ago, Jonathan Leeser from Ramsey Football Club came to me and said they really need an extra training space for the young people, for the football players they have. He said that used to be a pitch. We're not saying necessarily we would take it over permanently, but maybe if we could liaise with the commissioners and the department and get used to its use of it seasonally, we'll maintain it. We can use it for the kids to play football there, to train on, to develop their skills. It would be a win-win situation for everybody. So Ramsey Town Commissioners reached out to the department and said, can we open up negotiations for that space? And sadly, although we've sent multiple emails and it's a very simple request, every single email has been ignored. They failed to give us a reason why we can't even enter into negotiations. And in previous years, I was deputy chairman, and one of the greatest honours I ever had was going to the Ramsey Football Club Gala Awards dinner, and I got to see firsthand how much that club means to young people, what it gives to young people in Ramsey, the bonds that they have, the friendships they have, how it's incredibly good for their physical health, their mental health, and they also give back to the community. So they've asked for something really small from us. Can we expand and use a space that no one's touching, and we'll maintain it, we'll look at beautiful, we'll get it to football pitch standard. All we've asked from the department is a simple email to open up negotiations. This was months ago, so we voted to demand that the member come to the officer responsible for this decision, physically come to Ramsey Town Commissioners and explain why they can't just give us the respect of a single email. Because those young kids, they really deserve better because they're a credit to this town.
The charity Livid Homes launched its new digital hub facility in Laxey. The hub's located in the former post office premises in the centre of the village, offering free learning and support in a welcoming place. The charity, which is celebrating a quarter of a century of service to the community, says the new digital hub will help people stay connected and offer tech support with iPads, tablets, computers and mobile phones. Chief Exec of Live at Home is Karen Winter.
Live at Home is very much about trying to alleviate loneliness and isolation. During COVID, we realised a number of people had equipment, iPads, computers, phones, that they didn't know how to work, or they didn't have the equipment. So we realised that was a huge problem. So basically, we came up with a plan of a digital hub, put in for a bid for the Manx Lottery Trust, and were successful to produce a 3-year project. We now have the digital hub up and running. We have our digital officer who will be able to work in the hub for the first part of the week, and the second part of the week, Thursday and Friday, he will be going into people's homes where they may feel a little more comfortable to learn how to use the equipment. We've been successful in purchasing some equipment, which we can also loan out if people wish to try before they buy. We want this hub to be a diverse community place where people can come in, have a cup of tea, feel comfortable. We have books, etc., that they can have. So we want it very much to be a community facility.
It's right here in the heart of Laxey. It's a lovely bright space in what was, I think, previously the post office. It's very much an island-wide facility, though, even though it's here in Laxey.
Absolutely. Anybody on the island can use it. We are lucky that we're on the bus route, so it wouldn't be difficult for people to get to, and it's literally opposite the bus stop. Live at Home is very much an island-wide facility anyway, so it just supports what we already do.
That's it for Update Tonight. Compiled from the resources of Max Review's news department, thanks to newsreader Christian Jones, producer Lewis Foster. After the news at 6, we're with the Ghosts. Pre-Hop Janae with Siobhan Fletcher. Greatest Hits with Chris Kinley at 6:30. Jumping John Barker with a folk show at 9, and Dave Moore after hours at 10 with a late show. An Update returns tomorrow, Wednesday at 5:30.
WINT